feet are warm and heavy. My feet are warm and heavy. And let those feet feel a sense of warmth and feel a sense of heaviness. To this point, I've only focused on physical relaxation. Your mind may still be thinking, and that's okay. After all, that's what minds do. But right now, you've achieved a state of physical relaxation and a state where you've allowed yourself to experience both warmth and heaviness. And so you're doing perfect, relaxing completely. Now beginning to relax the mind with a short creative visualization. And so in your mind's eye, imagine you're outside underneath a clear blue sky. It's a perfect day, a place you've been before, or a place you'd like to go, or even a place of your own creation. And imagine looking up into that blue sky, focusing your attention on a single white puffy cloud lazily and leisurely floating across the sky. And as it moves off into the horizon, becoming smaller and smaller, notice that there will come a point where it disappears into the horizon completely. And it'll be at that point that you notice both mind and body are completely relaxed. Never asleep, but deeply relaxed. Never asleep, but completely focused on this wonderful state that you've created. And this state that you've created is really a basic state of hypnosis, one where you're open to new experiences, where you're able to create new sensations like warmth or heaviness, and able to use that creative capacity of the mind to envision a single white puffy cloud floating through the sky. And if I were to continue with a deepener and suggestions, you can now see how easy it would be to follow that process as well. But since this is only a demonstration, take in a breath. Open the eyes, feeling awake and refreshed, and having benefited from this brief experience. Now, Antonio, what I just guided everyone through was a very basic process or a very basic hypnosis induction. But what it did was it focused the listener's attention that I could then guide them into a useful trance state. I mean, they've achieved a trance state, but I can then, when that puffy cloud disappears off into the horizon, I can either go into entertainment suggestions, name amnesia, or I can go into therapeutic suggestions like the next time they're at a buffet, they'll see it as an opportunity to make one of many healthy food choices in the correct portion, rather than seeing it as they had every other night, which is an opportunity to get their $9.95's worth. And so this basic process lets a person experience what it's like to experience hypnosis.
And like when I was first hypnotized, I think it was a stage hypnosis show a couple years ago. The one thing that really shocked me is how it actually felt. A lot of people, I think, have some kind of preconceived notion that when they go into a hypnotic trance, that they won't hear anything, they're going to be asleep.
Yeah, they think they're going to be in a sixth dimension. I had a client came in the office. First thing he said to me is, "Are you going to videotape this?" I said, "Well, I wasn't planning on it." He said, "Well, how am I going to know what happens?" And I said, "Because you're going to be here the whole time." And, when we enter a state of hypnosis for the first time, sometimes people are disappointed because it's not a mystical state of the sixth dimension. It's really a state of creativity, a state of focused concentration, sometimes a state of heightened awareness, a state of experiential change, and sometimes people are looking for that Hollywood experience, which, by the way, brings us back to rapid induction, because for some of those clients, we can produce creativity, we can enhance sensorial experiences we can focus our attention, but we can do it instantly with a rapid induction rather than slowly like I just did in that demonstration. And people find that to be very powerful. But either way will work. In fact, in the induction I just went through, I used what's called autogenic training. And autogenic is a fancy word. Auto just means self. I mean, and genic, means, from within. So it's autogenic, generating from within myself. And I asked you to think of the word warm and think of the word heavy and to create that state. Well, if you can create warmth or if you can create heaviness, then can you create a calm state when you're phobic? Can you create a full state when you're dieting? Can you create a comfortable state where you felt pain before? Can you create a content state where some smokers feel withdrawal? Well, the answer is yes. And so that induction, even though it's a longer induction, it teaches a person that, wow, they have the ability to control and create. And for a lot of people, that's a tremendously freeing reality for them.
Oh, that gives me a lot better idea of autogenic training. And autogenic training, did that originate with was it Maxwell? I forget what his name was.
The doctor's name was Johannes Schultz, and he published this book called Autogenic Training, and he borrowed some techniques from yoga and meditation, certainly, and it affects the autonomic nervous system. And as a physician, he was able to bring health to his clients, because back then they didn't have the heart surgeries and the medications that we currently have, Lipitor, all kinds of stuff like that. So he had to teach his clients to create change from within themselves. This is the ultimate hypnotic procedure. I learned autogenic training when I worked at an inpatient psychiatric hospital 20 years ago, and the nurses taught me autogenic training. And I never hear people talk about autogenic training. It's not something usually talked about in the hypnosis world, but Schultz borrowed a lot of his ideas from yoga and meditation, as hypnosis does. And it's been a great technique that I've integrated into my, hypnosis inductions and hypnosis practice for the last 20 years.
When you personally do a hypnotic induction, what details in the subject's response do you focus on?
I look for a lot of things. The first thing is, are they following my suggestions? For example, in an induction, everything we suggest needs to be followed before we can suggest anything else. So I say, come on in my office. Here, have a seat. If they don't sit down, they're not following the first suggestion. So the first thing I'm looking for is, do they follow a suggestion? When I say to them, now go ahead and close the eyes, if they don't close their eyes, they're not following that suggestion. If I say, and as you let yourself feel a sense of relaxation, dropping the chin towards the chest a bit, letting the muscles in the shoulders and neck become relaxed, and they don't drop their chin towards their chest, they're not following that suggestion. So the first thing I'm looking for is, are they following the suggestions? Because we can't go on any further. The next thing I'm looking for is, most often, Jesus said it best, the eye is the lamp unto the soul. I'm looking for that look in their eye that says their attention is fixated entirely on the process or the experience. In speed trance, since I often use John Cerbone's method, where I have them fixate their eyes on the tips of my fingers, I'm looking for that almost magnetic attraction to the ends of my fingers. Or I'm looking during clinical hypnosis where they're at that point where it almost as if they can't keep the eyes open any further. And that's why I let people know it'll be easier to relax deeper if you simply close the eyes. Or I look for those REM eye movements where their eyes begin to move rapidly or dart from side to side. And then the next thing I'm looking for physical relaxation. Do I see slumping and a kind of a flattening of the skin as the mini muscles tend to relax? And then I'll sometimes look for other things, like, you know how sometimes when you go into sleep, your arm just moves, your leg just moves? When I see that during the induction, that lets me know that, hey, this is a person who's entering a deeper trance state. And so I'm looking for those things. That lets me know that a person is following the process that I'm suggesting. I think a lot of new hypnotists, by the way, they worry, though. What if somebody swallows or scratches an itch or moves? If they do that, I simply let them know that that'll help them to become more comfortable, and it'll help them to actually relax even further. And I don't let that bother me. I don't view that as a sign of not going into trance. I view that as a sign of simply becoming more comfortable.
You know, Milton Erickson had the best phrase for that. That's right.
Yep. That's right.
That's right. Whatever you're doing is perfectly fine.
Ever since I watched that YouTube video of I can't remember what it was now, but a YouTube video of sort of a Milton Erickson parody. Zohan does hypnosis or something. I can't ever think of That's Right and think of Milton Erickson, and I now think of Zohan, the YouTube hypnotist.
I think I've seen that a couple times, probably on your suggestion.
Probably.
Now, are there any other things that you look for to let you know that somebody's going into a hypnotic trance?
You know, the biggest thing is, are they following my suggestions? So when I suggest they close their eyes, do they? When I suggest they relax the muscles, do they? When I suggest that they create a peaceful scene underneath a clear blue sky in a place they've been before, a place they'd like to go, or even a place of their own creation, do they look to me? Is the energy that they send out one of tranquility and relaxation and detachment from the stress of the day? And it was Ernest Rossi who described hypnosis as belly button to belly button communication. I think that's a pretty good metaphor for being in state with the client, as NLP would call it.
Now, you actually bring something up. What if, let's say I'm hypnotizing somebody and I actually make the mistake of choosing the scene for somebody. Let's say I tell them that they're lying on a beach. They can hear the waves, they can feel the warmth of the sun and whatnot, and they start to have a negative reaction.
One of the things I rarely use beach imagery, and the reason why, I live in Oklahoma, and so it's 14 hours to the nearest beach, and a lot of my clients have never been to a beach. They're 40 years old, and seriously, they've never been to a beach. Why? Because, well, they live in the Midwest or South Central states, and it's a day's travel or more to the nearest beach. You're in Hawaii, so the beach is probably very familiar and comfortable to the people that you're around. I think the less, when doing visual imagery work, we have to have a starting point. So I'll give people that starting point of a clear blue sky, but I give them the option of a place you've been before, a place you'd like to go, or a place of your own creation. Well, that's pretty nondescript. A lot of people use, for example, the staircase deepener. Imagine you're on a heavenly flight of stairs, and in the staircase deepener, I actually heard a guy doing it the other day, and he said, imagine the royal blue carpeting, and you're on top of the highest step with a brass rail to the right. Well, what if somebody's visual imagery doesn't have brass, doesn't have blue, isn't heavenly, isn't tall? And Michael Johns, what he actually does during his quote-unquote staircase deepener is this. He says, because this is what he does in his Las Vegas show, he says, imagine yourself on an elevator, an escalator, or a flight of stairs, wherever you're comfortable, going lower and lower, deeper and deeper. Wow, what a great way of simply letting the client, providing a framework for their visualization, but not letting them become resistant by not being able to share the same image that you have and attach their own imagery to that frame that we've hung for them. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that actually also helps just in case if the person has a phobia of elevators. Actually, read recently on hypnothoughts.com. Everybody, if you're listening, if you don't know about Hypnothoughts, it's hypnothoughts.com. Excellent resource for hypnotists. There's probably 7,000 plus members. A really good resource.
Yeah, it's a great resource, and I have a group on there. It's called ICBCH, Hypnosis, NLP, and coaching, and that's usually one of the featured groups, so it's easy to find. So join our group, just because it's good to